My family took out $170K in student loans behind my back. They gave half to my twin brother who never went to college. But when I demanded they pay me back, they blocked me. So I sued them, and they never expected what the judge would do. I'm 23 years old, just graduated from college about 6 months ago, got a decent internship at an accounting firm, and I'm basically trying to put my life together like any young adult. You know, paying rent, buying my own food, all those adult things that nobody really prepares you for. And just when I thought things were going well, that I was finally getting on track, I get this email from the bank that literally destroyed my life completely. I mean, when I say it destroyed my life, I'm not exaggerating even a little bit, because what I discovered that day changed absolutely everything I thought about my family, about my parents, about the person I trusted most in the world. But anyway, I guess I should start from the beginning so this makes sense. I grew up in a pretty normal family. Or so I thought. I have a twin brother, Mason, and we were always very different, like completely opposite. I was the nerd, the one who studied, who got good grades, the responsible one, let's say. Mason was more the popular type, always very handsome and charismatic, that kind of person who walks into a party and everyone turns to look at him. He never did great in school, but he didn't seem to care much either, and my parents, Angela and Paul, never pushed him as hard as they pushed me. Looking back now, I should have noticed it then, but when you're a kid, you don't realize those things. You know what I mean? Like you just accept that's how family dynamics are, and that's it. When it came time to decide about college, I knew from the beginning that I wanted to go. Study accounting, have a stable career. Mason decided that college wasn't for him, said he wanted to pursue modeling, that he had the looks and could make money with it. My parents supported him completely, said everyone should follow their own path and all that motivational speech. I applied to several universities and ended up getting into a pretty good one, but expensive, very expensive. I talked to my parents about finances because obviously I was worried about money, and they told me not to worry, that they would take care of the student loans, that I should just focus on studying and graduating. During the 4 years of college, I worked part-time when I could, tried to be as responsible as possible with money, lived in a shared apartment with 3 other roommates to save on rent, ate a lot of ramen and pasta because it was the cheapest, basically did everything possible not to overspend. My parents paid tuition directly from their accounts, or so I thought. I honestly never saw the statements or anything because I trusted them completely. Why wouldn't I trust my own parents? Right? Meanwhile, Mason lived at home, did some photo shoots here and there, but nothing super consistent. My parents supported him financially, and I thought, well, it's their decision. Maybe eventually his career will take off. I graduated in May. It was a super exciting moment. My parents came to the ceremony. We took pictures, went to dinner, all very nice and emotional. At that time, they told me I had approximately $85,000 in student debt, which was within what I expected for 4 years at that university. It's a lot of money, obviously, but it's more or less average for someone studying at a decent private university, and I had a plan. I was going to get a job after the internship and start paying little by little. I wasn't excited about the idea of being in debt for years, but it didn't scare me that much either, because I knew it was an investment in my future and all that. I got the internship at the accounting firm like 2 weeks after graduating, moved into a small apartment, and when I say small, it's literally a studio the size of a shoebox. But well, it was mine. Started working, and things seemed to be going well. I was earning enough to pay my rent, my basic expenses, and start planning for the student loan payments that would begin in a few months. I felt like a real adult for the first time, independent and responsible. Mason was still living with my parents, according to him, because he needed to save money to invest in his modeling career, and I honestly didn't think much about it because I was focused on my own life. Then that day came. It was a normal Tuesday. I remember it was Tuesday because on Tuesdays, we always have a team meeting in the morning that I hate with all my soul. I got home around 7 at night, tired, hungry, the usual. I opened my laptop to check my emails and saw one from the bank, from the student loans department. I thought it would be something routine, maybe confirmation of my information or something like that. I opened it, and it basically said that my grace period was about to end and that I should start making plans to pay my debt of $170,000. $170,000. I read that number like 5 times because I thought there was an error, that maybe it was a system glitch or something. It was supposed to be 85,000, not 170. I mean, literally double what my parents had told me. My first instinct was total panic, like that kind of panic where you feel your chest tighten and you can't breathe well. I checked the email again, looked for all the documents I had about my loans, tried to understand what had happened. I called the bank immediately, although it was already like 8 at night and I had to wait until the next day to talk to someone. That night I didn't sleep at all, literally nothing. I stayed awake all night, turning this over in my mind, trying to find a logical explanation. Maybe they had included interest by mistake. Maybe it was a combination of several loans and they were adding something twice. I don't know. I was looking for any explanation that made sense. The next day I called the bank as soon as they opened. I spoke with a representative and explained the situation. Told her there had to be an error because I expected to owe 85,000, not 170. The girl on the other end checked my account and told me, "No, sir, there's no error. You have 2 student loans in your name, one for 85,000 and another for 85,000, both signed by your parents as co-signers 4 years ago." My brain just couldn't process this information. I asked her how it was possible that I had 2 loans for the same amount, that it didn't make sense. She explained that the first loan was taken out for my first year and was renewed each year, and the second loan was taken out at the same time but for additional expenses, and that it was completely legal because my parents had signed all the necessary documents. I hung up the phone and immediately called my mom, Angela. She answered with her usual cheerful voice, asking me how I was, and I told her we needed to talk urgently about the student loans. There was an uncomfortable silence on the other end, that kind of silence that it already tells you something bad is coming. I explained what the bank had told me and asked her directly what was going on. My mom started with her usual tactics, that defensive tone of voice where she tries to make you feel guilty for even asking. She told me, why was I so upset, that they had done the best they could, that raising 2 children wasn't cheap. I told her, "Mom, don't change the subject. Tell me why there's $170,000 in loans in my name when you told me it was 85,000. Finally, she admitted that yes, they had taken out the full loan, the $170,000. I asked her what the hell they needed so much money for, if my tuition didn't cost that. And that's when she dropped the bomb on me, told me they had given part of the money to Mason. I went silent because I literally didn't know what to say. It was like my brain had frozen. I asked her how much they had given Mason, and after much insisting, she told me $80,000, basically half of the complete loan. $80,000. That was supposed to be for my education, for my college expenses. They had given it to my twin brother who didn't even go to college. I tried to stay calm. I really did. But my voice was shaking when I asked her why they did that, why they took out a loan in my name to give money to Mason. My mom started with her justifications, said that Mason also needed support for his career, that modeling requires initial investment, that he needed to network and travel and have good clothes, and that they as parents had to support both children equally. Equally. Those words made me so angry. I mean, how is it equal to give $80,000 to one of your children to spend on his supposed career while the other goes into debt for a ridiculous amount without even knowing it? I told her I needed to talk to my dad too, and that I was going to the house that weekend. The trip to my parents' house that Saturday was horrible. I drove like 2.5 hours with a knot in my stomach the whole time. I arrived and my parents were there. They looked uncomfortable, which was weird because usually they're very good at pretending everything is fine. I sat down with them in the living room and told them I wanted to hear the whole truth, that they should explain to me exactly what had happened with the money. My dad, Paul, immediately got defensive, started talking louder, saying that they had made the best decision they could at the time, that it was complicated to have 2 children and try to support both in different ways. I asked them specifically what Mason had used the $80,000 for. My mom started crying, which is her usual strategy when she doesn't want to answer something, but I wasn't going to let myself be manipulated anymore. I insisted. And finally, my dad told me that Mason had used the money to invest in his career, which included paying for professional photo sessions, a portfolio, clothes for castings, a car because apparently he needed a decent car to get to castings with a good image, trips to New York and Los Angeles to network, and living expenses, while he established his career. Basically, they had given him a huge fund to live comfortably while he pursued a dream that so far had produced almost no money. I told them that was absolutely unacceptable, that they had committed fraud by taking out a loan in my name to give money to someone else. My dad got angry and yelled at me that it wasn't fraud because they were the co-signers and had every legal right to do whatever they wanted with that money. I told him that legal or not, it was morally disgusting. That now I was in debt for $170,000 for an education that cost $85,000, while my brother had spent my money on trips and parties. My mom was sobbing, saying that I didn't understand how hard it was to be parents, that they had always tried to be fair to both. Fair. That word made me nauseous. I left there without resolving anything, went straight to Mason's apartment, which was like 20 minutes from my parents' house. I knocked on the door, and when he opened it, he was there with his expensive clothes, his brand-name sneakers, his comfortable life that I had paid for without knowing it. I asked him if he knew where the money our parents gave him came from. He shrugged and told me yes, that he knew it was from a student loan, but that Mom and Dad had told him not to worry, that they would take care of everything. I asked him what he had spent the $80,000 on, and he basically confirmed everything: trips, parties, clothes, his car, paid his apartment rent for 2 full years, everything. What hurt me most was that he didn't show even a little bit of remorse. He acted as if it were completely normal for our parents to put me in debt to finance his lifestyle. I told him that was my future he had ruined, that I was going to be paying that debt for decades. And he just told me that I had gone to college and he hadn't, that it was fair that he also received financial support somehow. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I literally wanted to hit him, but I held back because I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I went back to my apartment that Sunday night and spent the whole week researching legal options. I consulted with 2 different lawyers to understand my rights and what I could do. Both told me basically the same thing: that technically my parents had the right to use the loan money however they wanted because they were co-signers, but that there was definitely a case for fraud, or at least deception, if they had lied to me about the total amount and the use of the money. They also told me that suing your own parents was complicated, expensive, and emotionally devastating, but that it was possible to recover at least some of the money if I could prove there was deception. I decided to give them one more chance before taking legal action. I called them and told them they had 2 weeks to come up with a payment plan to return the $80,000 they gave Mason, or I would proceed legally. My mom cried again, told me how could I threaten my own parents, that we were family, that this was a betrayal, and I literally exploded, yelled at her over the phone that they had betrayed me, that they had ruined my financial stability for years, that they had lied and manipulated all of this. My dad took the phone and told me I was being dramatic, that eventually Mason would succeed in modeling and it would all be worth it. I told him that wasn't my problem, that I hadn't signed up to be my brother's bank. After a lot of back and forth, they finally agreed that they would start paying me in monthly installments of $2,000 until completing the $80,000. It wasn't ideal because it meant it would take them more than 3 years to pay me back, but I accepted it, because at least it was something. The first 3 months they paid on time, I saw the transfers arrive in my account and thought that maybe, just maybe, this would be resolved without having to go to trial. But then in the 4th month, the payment didn't arrive. I messaged them, asking what was happening, and they left me on red. I called and they didn't answer. I gave them a few days thinking maybe they had some temporary problem, but a week went by, then 2, then 3, and nothing. They had completely ghosted me. My own parents had blocked me from their lives because I asked them to fix the mess they had created. I tried to contact Mason too, but he didn't respond either. Clearly my parents had told him everything, and now my whole family had cut me out of their lives. It was surreal. I mean, I was the victim in this whole situation, and somehow they had managed to turn things around to make me look like the villain. I felt completely alone, betrayed not just financially, but emotionally. These were the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, and they had used me and discarded me as if I didn't matter. I had no choice but to proceed with the lawsuit. I hired one of the lawyers I had consulted with before, gave him all the documentation I had, the emails, the text messages, the bank records of the 3 payments they had made, everything. We filed the lawsuit for fraud, misrepresentation, and financial damages. The legal process was horrible. I had to relive the whole story over and over again, give statements, gather more evidence. My parents hired their own lawyer, and basically their strategy was to say that I was being an ungrateful son, that they had sacrificed everything for me, and that I was lucky to have received any support for college. The process lasted like 8 months. It was the most stressful 8 months of my life. I worked all day at the firm and then came home to deal with legal papers, lawyers' emails, preparation for depositions. I was spending money I barely had on legal fees, although my lawyer assured me that if we won, my parents would have to cover those costs too. I wasn't sleeping well. I had lost like 10 kilos because stress took away my appetite, and worst of all, I didn't really have anyone to talk to about this. My friends tried to understand, but it's hard to explain to someone who's never been through something like this how devastating it is for your own family to betray you in this way. Just before we got to trial, my parents' lawyer asked for a meeting to discuss a possible settlement. Apparently, they had realized they weren't going to win the case because the evidence against them was too clear. There were emails where they themselves admitted what they had done. There were bank documents showing the transfers to Mason. Everything was there. In the meeting, they proposed to pay me the full $80,000, plus all my legal fees, which at that point added up to like $15,000 additional dollars, in exchange for me withdrawing the lawsuit and signing a non-disclosure agreement. My lawyer advised me to accept, told me it was a good offer and that if we went to trial maybe we'd win more, but there was also the risk of losing. And besides, the trial would take more time and more money. I accepted the settlement, although part of me wanted to take them to trial just so there would be a public record of what they had done. We signed the papers, established that they had to pay within 30 days, and I waited. This time, they did comply. I guess the fear of legal consequences was enough motivation. I received a transfer for $95,000, the $80,000 plus legal fees, and I literally started crying when I saw the money in my account. It wasn't crying from happiness exactly. It was more like crying from relief, mixed with sadness for everything I had to go through to get there. I used that money immediately to pay the portion of the loan that corresponded to what Mason had spent. Now, my student debt is $85,000, which is what it should have been from the beginning, and I have a payment plan I can manage with my salary. I no longer have that horrible burden of $170,000 on my shoulders, and although $85,000 is still a lot of money, at least it's an amount that makes sense, that corresponds to what I actually received in education. Since all this was resolved, I haven't spoken to my parents or Mason. They haven't tried to contact me either. I guess in their minds, I'm the terrible son who sued them and ruined the family harmony. Sometimes I feel guilty, you know? Because despite everything, they're still my family. And there's a part of me that wonders if I should have handled it differently, if I should have been more understanding or patient. But then I remember everything that happened. All the lies, all the manipulation, the fact that they ghosted me when I asked them to rectify their mistake, and that guilt disappears. They had multiple opportunities to do the right thing, and chose not to until I legally forced them. Last week, I ran into an aunt at the supermarket, my mom's sister, and she told me that the whole family is upset with me. How could I do that to my parents? That Mason is very affected by all this. I didn't give her many details, but I told her there were two sides to the story, and that she didn't know the whole truth. She insisted that family is the most important thing, and that I should forgive. I told her that forgiveness doesn't mean allowing them to keep hurting you, and I left. I guess my extended family stayed with my parents' version where I'm the villain, and honestly, I don't even care about changing their opinion anymore. The people who really matter to me, some close friends and a couple of colleagues from work who know the situation, have supported me, and that's enough. Now I'm 23 years old. I live alone in a small apartment, work hard at my internship that will probably become a full-time job soon, and I'm building a life that's completely mine. I don't have the big united family I thought I had, but at least I have peace of mind knowing that nobody is using me or lying to me. Sometimes, it makes me sad to think about everything I lost, not just the money, but the idea of having a family I could trust. But I also feel liberated in a certain sense. I no longer have to pretend everything is fine. I no longer have to accept crumbs of attention while Mason receives everything. I no longer have to live under my parents' expectations and manipulations. Is it worth losing your family over money? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that question, and I'll probably keep asking myself that for a long time. But what I do know is that it wasn't just about the money. It was about respect, about honesty, about the principle that it's not okay for them to use you and lie to you like that, not even your own family. And if that makes me the bad guy in their eyes, I guess I'll have to live with that.